Okay, so if we can't get her back on, we do have a backup plan, so not to worry. PTA flexible, right? Worked earlier this morning in this morning session. But it looks like we're having a connection difficulty with their phones. So that being said, turn on my video. Hi. Okay, I am not Cornelia Watson. I'm Heather Brooks, PTA for a few years, PTA president over at Parkside, joined county council and have been their social media chair. And then this, for the last 2 years, this year, I'm VP of organization. So like all of you, lots of hats. But let's go through this and see what she was going to share with you. And if you have questions, let me know. Again, I can also, forward any questions to Cornelia and have her get in touch with you if there's something really specific that you need help with. So let me close this down, move all my windows so I can see. So this is a pretty general overview of what the PTA secretary position is, what are the duties, what's important to get you started off right, how to make an agenda, how to take minutes, what are motions, what kind of records you need to keep. And I think the hardest thing in PTA, especially at the local unit level, is parliamentary procedures and how to run a meeting. Super difficult, and it doesn't seem like anybody really understands what it is, but it's mostly about the rules, how to take turns. Hold on here. Are any of you seasoned secretaries, or is this your first year being a secretary? You can unmute and just let me know. Is this your first year being a secretary, or have you done it before? First year, Lisa. Floor, what about you? You want to unmute and let me know if it's, or you can put it in the chat. I'm just curious if I have brand new. Holly, are you brand new?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Floor, Betsy, are you brand new?
Yes, I'm brand new to being a secretary.
Okay, Betsy. Floor, what about you?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, it's first time doing recording secretary.
Okay, so good. Now I'm on the same page. I kind of have a better idea of where you guys are coming from. So the secretary duties are listed specifically in your bylaws, which that is your Bible of how to run your unit. It has the absolute rules that you cannot break. So it gives you how many people do you need in the meeting to have a quorum so that you can hold a meeting. That's very true of a lot of places. Your bylaws also tell you which positions have to be filled in an election. Your bylaws are super important. So if you haven't had a chance, go and take a look at your bylaws. The thing to know about bylaws is that they come down to us from Florida State. They give us a template, which is great because that way our bylaws match up with theirs. And their bylaws are matched up through the template with national. So because it's a template, you don't have to write it from scratch. We just fill in information that's specific to our units, how many first VP or how many VPs, if 1, 3, if you just one with chairs or whatever, how many meetings do you want to have a year? So that's really important for you to know. And also just know that your bylaws have to be reviewed every 3 years as a board. It should be reviewed every year, really, because changes happen, especially over the last couple of years with COVID. Before 2020, you could not hold a general meeting or an election, anything that required a vote. You could not have it virtually. They, of course, updated their bylaws, and that allowed PTA units to do things virtually. But any unit that was not using the latest bylaw form and had had it approved, they would have been out of compliance. So it's important every year to check and see the latest year's bylaw template that's posted on Florida's website. Also, Florida will send out a kit of materials, which has a whole section on secretaries that you get when your president updates the new and returning officers form on Florida's site. That's how they get your information as far as your email, your position, and all units do that. If there's a change in the board during the year, there's a change form, not the new and returning officers form, but there's a specific change form that will update your officers during the year. So it's really important that your president has filled out, it's an online form, takes about a week or so, and then Florida will send your entire board this year's kit of materials. All the main positions have sections. The treasurers is huge, the president, secretary, they all have a membership chair. They all have really specific duties, lots of great information on how to run things. It'll give you examples for minutes. A lot of the stuff we're talking about today, you can go back through and look in your kit of materials and get the specifics. So it's really important that you have your kit of materials and look for the section that says secretaries. Again, a great resource for what are you responsible for are the National PTA website, the Florida PTA website, and then of course you have County Council. And County Council, we are not, I know that there's a perception that County Council is like the cops and that we come around when something bad happens. That's not it at all. We are actually here. We're all former unit presidents, secretaries, board members, and we came up to County Council because we knew in those positions that things would come up that you needed help with. You didn't know how in the world to address it, or if it was something that was okay, or something that something wonky happened, and you're not sure what to do about it. So can items in Article 3 be amended? In the bylaw template, you will see where they allow you to make changes. So there's specific slots that you can actually enter your information in. Those are the only things that can be changed. So back to your duties. County Council is here to help you. We are here to be supporters, help you come up with solutions, give you examples of how different things have been handled in the past. We definitely need to be called if there is a problem. Does not matter big or small problem, but a problem. County Council is here to help you. We want you to be successful. We also do not want you to ever be have the IRS knock on your door. We never want to have an issue, you to have an issue with the district, anything like that. So if stuff like that is going on, pick up the phone, give us a call. We're here to help you. We are not here to, be the mean parent or the good parent or anything. We're just here to help you. And we've been in your shoes. So just want to get that around. And then Robert's Rules of Order. All of this information is also on our website, the County Council website. There's a ton of information, links to forms, links to where to go, and then the national and state websites for specific information. So if you have a question, the first thing I would do is go to our website, take a look around, see if your question's answered. If it isn't, then you can check on the other websites. But if you still can't figure it out, or if it's not quite what you're looking for, give us a call. Now, Robert's Rules of Order, that's the parliamentary order. That is, I think, one of the hardest things to get a group of people to figure out how to do. And really, when it comes down to it, it's all about when you are in a group of people, how do you all take turns so that it's fair to talk and that nobody's getting talked over, and that when something is going to be agreed upon, is it really agreed upon by everybody or not? So think of it that way. Hold on here. Okay, so you as secretary is one of the recording secretary is one of the required 3 officers. Corresponding secretary is not required. So you can have one, but you don't have to have one. If you don't have a corresponding secretary, those duties, which is, you know, mainly the communications in and out, or communications out with your membership, maybe your social media presence, your Facebook page, that would probably go to the president and or the secretary. It just depends on how your unit wants to split those roles up. So secretary is, and the reason why it's required is because you're the one that's actually making note of what happened. And that's the only way that when things are moving on and you have a board for 1 year, there's no guarantee that the same people are going to be there the next year. How do you know what happened? How do you know if this, you know, if something came up and it's been coming up year after year and it was declined year after year for some reason? How do you know? Unless the secretary wrote it down in the meeting minutes and said, hey, this item came up. This is what we decided to, you know, okay, approve it or not approve it. So when you're writing your meeting minutes, it's your general meeting minutes, which tend to be a little bit more streamlined, basic, and then you have your board minutes, and that's where it gets a little bit more detailed. Okay, so again, oops, sorry, your bylaws are where your, there we go, where they specify the duties of corresponding and recording. You have to have a recording secretary to have a board, but you do not have to have a corresponding secretary. Stop. Sorry, my screen, I'm trying to move my chat box here so I can read. Okay. So one of the big things is your president. Figure out, usually they're so busy that they really don't care what kind of paragraph style, intended style, as long as it's easy to read. And it's important for you to make sure that you are looking at what's on the agenda from the current meeting. And if you can't get to everything, make sure that you remind the president before the next meeting when you're setting up the agenda that there was unfinished business. A lot of times people will forget. You're the memory keeper. Make sure that you're sitting near the president at all the meetings. Have the procedure book, your procedure book, with you. And your procedure book could be, it's either a policy and procedures, or a lot of people will call them standing rules. So your record book, your record book should have your current bylaws, your approved or proposed budget, depending on what's going on, and approved budget once it's approved, past minutes, your standing rules, or also policies and procedures, a membership list, and any other official documents, your 501c3, your what else? Your insurance documents, you know, all the things that you absolutely have to have. Standing rules are not something that you specifically have to write. This is something that your board together puts together. Standing rules change. They can change. You don't have to take them to the membership to get them approved. There are basically rules that your board agrees to abide by. So that could be, you know, we're meeting once a month, every second Tuesday at 5 o'clock. That's our standing meeting. That would be in your standing rules. Also in your standing rules would be information about your events. So say your membership chair does the beginning of your membership drive. You should have something in there, and I always have the chair put it together or review the previous chair's information and update it as needed. But how many tables? What room? Did you have custodial? How much did you pay for custodial? Again, remember this, I'm not talking about you guys having to do standing rules, but this is something that your board as a group should have, because this way you can look at last year and say, hey, we needed 4 tables last year and 2 custodial staff, and that, you know, was good. So then you know how to plan for this year. Or maybe you're like, hey, we didn't have enough custodial staff with just 1. It was really a hectic thing. Make sure we add another. So again, those standing rules not only have when are your meetings, any expectations that you might have of each other, like what to do if somebody is not showing up like they should, if there's any dress code that you need, but also how do you run your events? You know, when you do award nights at schools, how many bottles of orange juice or apple juice and, you know, bins of cookies do you usually get? Because when you first go in and you haven't done it before, it's recreating the wheel every time and you have no clue, you know, am I getting too much? Am I getting too little? So anyways, just to let you know, standing rules, little extras. And then Robert's Rules of Order, there's a link to it on our site. You can go YouTube it, Robert's Rules of Order. I'll tell you, when you first sit down and start listening to it, it feels very, very overwhelming, very overwhelming. But it really does help, because when you start getting 10 people or more in a room and you're all discussing things, it can become very unproductive pretty quickly, with people talking over each other, or people going back to something that had already been agreed on. So it's important to look at Robert's Rules, and you as secretary and the president, you are the two that really are focused on making sure that everybody's following the rules of order. So, you know, that there's an open floor when somebody's going to make what is a motion, when they make a motion, if somebody's going to approve it, you know, second, I move to pass the whatever the motion is, and then you have a second. So just make sure that you do look at that, and kind of keep in mind that you don't have to be a complete stickler, but it's good to familiar ourselves with it, and also think of it as, how do we make sure that everybody's talking? And also for you as secretary, when you have 3 people talking over each other, whose information are you writing down if you can even hear what they're saying? So it's really important, and that's why you need to be kind of the ruler on this and say, hey, I need to write down the minutes. I need you guys to follow, or, you know, how we're taking turns in our meetings, so that I can actually write everything down. Okay, so getting started. If you don't have one from your last board, you're going to start a procedure book. And this is something that you take with you to all of your board and general meetings. You don't have to bring it to you with you to workshops and trainings, but your procedure book should have an approved copy of the bylaws, the latest ones. If they are not current within the last 3 years, make sure your president knows that you as a board need to update your bylaws. You have current standing rules. If you don't have standing rules, you need to talk to your president about getting the board together and setting some up. Your list of current members, you can print those out through Member Hub. And you need that list, because anytime that you're going to have a vote in a general meeting, you remember only members can vote. So you need to have that list to make sure that only people that are voted, that are members, are actually voting, and that nobody outside, nobody that's not supposed to be there, they can sit and listen, they just can't vote. So that's the one thing. And then make sure you have your charter and your insurance and any other official documents that you have for your unit. So this is a sample meeting agenda. This would be a board meeting. This is not a general meeting. So this is when your board gets together once a month, or whenever you do. You're going to make sure that you have your school name, the date, the time that it started and ended. You're always going to start with a called meeting to order, you know, everybody chit-chatting, tell them to be quiet, it's time to go. And then you're going to approve the last meeting's minutes. If it's the first meeting of the year, and that's not the summer planning meetings, that's like after your first general membership meeting, there won't be any approval of minutes, because you don't have any minutes. And then you have your reports from your officers. So that's your treasurer, president, secretary, which you usually don't have any updates, so treasurer, president, and then there's always a membership report, and principals are usually invited to your board meetings. So is it just a sitting seat? So if they have something that they want to share, it's always really good because then the whole board hears directly the same message from the principal. Try to make sure that everybody knows to keep it short, only summarize. The board meeting isn't the time to debate the nitty gritty. That stuff should be happening in the committee level, so that when the committee chair brings it up, they can be like, hey, we're going to have author day on November 16th. This is the author that we have chosen, and this is the cost. And so, you know, and we've checked with the principal's office and they're free for that day. We can do that. And then everybody votes that yes, we can or we can't. But the whole thing about which author do we pick, you know, does the principal have the right date, you know, all this, that should be done in committee before it comes to your board meeting, because your board meeting shouldn't be committee meetings. Otherwise, you're going to have 2-hour-long board meetings every time. So then you have your committees. So all of your committee chairs do the same thing. They give a quick update. If they have a question or something to bring to the board as far as hey, here's an expense, we propose that we go ahead with this. And then the board will say yay or nay, or push it back to the committee and say, hey, you got to, you know, fix or change whatever. And then you do your unfinished business. So anything that you had missed from the last meeting, you finish up in this meeting. And then you close out with any new business. So this would be anything new that's kind of happened since the last meeting. And then you go to your announcements and, you know, date reminders for the next meetings. So that was your agenda. That actually has to go out to everybody with it, you know, at least a day before your board meeting. If it's a general meeting, your agenda needs to go out to all members of your unit 3 days in advance. That way everybody knows exactly what's coming up. So then they pair up in your book with, at the end of the day, with your meeting minutes. So this is where you are writing down the information that happened in the meeting. So if you look here, it's try to keep it short and sweet. We're summarizing. Only putting in the pertinent information. So like I said, if there's like a 5-minute conversation about a certain vendor that, you know, didn't perform well in the last event, and so half the board doesn't want to use them again, and a few people were like questioning it, but at the end of the day, the board decided, yeah, we're not using them. This is a good time to write in a little note. You know, board made the decision to not use vendor XYZ due to blah, blah, blah. Because then if anything ever happens and you have a question, or, you know, future boards, they can go back and go, oh yeah, I see what happened. Oh, okay, now I see why they didn't want to use them. I get that. So this is, you know, it's summary, but also your pertinent information. So the stuff that you want to remember, or you want to tell a future board why you did something. You can, you can write it as a paragraph like this. You can also do some bullets in there if there's a list of things. So you can kind of write it however, and like I said, you know, indentations, paragraph style, all that stuff, that's up to you, as long as it is readable. So your minutes, move this over here. So every meeting, you have to take minutes. That's part of the thing. You have to have a quorum to be able to start the meeting, which we always recommend having 10 as your number of members present in order to have a quorum. That's because a unit has to have a minimum of 10 members to actually start. And having any more people for a quorum means that it's very difficult. If you have 20 people for a quorum set in your bylaws, there's going to be a lot of meetings where you're not going to be able to do any votes because you won't have all 20 people there. But if you keep it at 10 and say you have, 50 members, you're much more likely to get 10 members in the room than all 50. So just remember that you need 10. Usually you need is whatever's in your bylaw, but I hope your bylaws say 10 because that would be the best thing. You can send out minutes before the meeting. So the minutes from the last meeting would go out with the agenda for the next meeting. That way everybody has a chance to read it. And then when you are approving the minutes, you're going to be asking, has everybody read the minutes? Does anybody have any corrections that need to be made? This wouldn't be time to have a discussion about the stuff that you talked about at the last meeting. This would be, a spelling name was wrong, or you put down the wrong vendor's name, or the date needs to be corrected, or we had 3 people that came in from the vendor and only one of their names are in there. So it's corrections. It's not additions. When everybody has said their piece, any changes have been noted, then you would move to approve the minutes, and then you sign and date when they're approved and corrected. So if there aren't any corrections, you would note them as the minutes as being approved as written. If there are corrections, you would note them as approved as corrected. Motions. This is where we kind of get into Robert's Rules of Order. So you want to have a blank motion form, because this is what's going to help you write your minutes later on. If there is a motion, because it's not part of the agenda, and motions have to be voted on, you're going to want to have this form with you so that you can write down what the motion is, and then you can write down who is bringing the motion to the table, who seconded, and then when the vote happens, how many opposed, how many approved, and whether or not it passed or failed. Yeah, always bring paper. Depending on how you're doing it, you could be just counting hands. If it's a virtual vote, you would go in and have people, raise their hands or put their hand up, and then you count on the participation list how many hands are up, or look on the screen how many hands are up, and then you'd be able to do that. As secretary, you are definitely the one that's counting. President should also count, because you want 2 counts of votes to make sure that they're verified. Okay. Just kind of repeating here, minutes, brief and to the point. Okay, so types of meetings, you have your general, which is open to you, all of your membership. You have executive, that's your board. Special, which would be your executive team, so just the elected board members, president, secretary, treasurer, and then whoever else was elected. If you're not elected, then you would be part of the executive or the board. Executive is treasurer, president, secretary, and whoever's elected. And then you have an emergency. So, things come up and things have to be voted on. So you'll have emergencies. So just make sure that you're noting what type of meeting. I would usually put it just above or below the date, so that it's clear near the top what kind of a meeting it is. Don't use any abbreviations for your names. You also need to note in your minutes whether a quorum was reached. I don't think the sample ones, no, it did. It said a quorum was reached. And you need to announce that to the president, that once the call to order happened, do you have enough people present to vote? You let them know that a quorum is reached, and then you can move on to the business. For not general meetings, but for all of the other meetings, you are going to list who is in attendance. That includes absences and whether or not they're excused absences. For the list of persons, again, just use a sign-in sheet for general meetings. You don't have to write all that down, just attach the sign-in sheets. And if president or secretary are absent, you have to have who is going to be running the meeting in their place. Somebody has to be named as acting as president and secretary for meetings to occur. And then again, the part about reading and making note whether or not the minutes have been read and approved or read and corrected and then approved. Okay, so here's a big one too. Treasurer's report. So every meeting you need to have a treasurer's report unless it is a special or an emergency meeting. Those might not need a treasurer's report, but a general meeting and then your board meetings, the treasurer is expected to present a condition of your finances report. So you'll have here exactly what it is that they're supposed to be letting you know. It's actually required in the minutes, but you can use, you should, how do I want to say this? Your president should also be giving you and your treasurer should be giving you and your president prior to a meeting the most current budget report. So the spreadsheet printout. So that way, and they should also be bringing copies, or it should be shared on the screen if it's a virtual meeting, so that everybody in the group can see exactly what's going on with the finances. You as secretary, you're just going to summarize the treasurer's report with that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if there's anything that is changed. So say you didn't use all of the funds in the line item for the Halloween dance. And so you decided to use some with the remaining funds and you're going to move those into the line for the Valentine's fundraiser. So something like that, you'd need to have that discussed and why you'd want to, move that, or why you're moving things around and from where to where. And then those changes would need to be approved in a general meeting. So it's important though to just make note of if things are changing, why is it being changed? Because sometimes you'll go back and there'll be a disagreement in people's memories over, hey, I'm, the community outreach chair, and I thought that the scholarship chair said that they had $200 extra that weren't being used and that I could use it for, this community event that we're going to do. But there's no record of that. Then who's right? So it's really good when you are talking about that stuff, especially finances, write down any changes and why. So again, you're not transcribing the discussions, you are talking about the summary of the actions. Motions are going to be where you're going to want to write down the exact wording of what's being voted upon. Okay, so motions are recorded as adopted if they pass, or lost if they fail to pass. Oops, sorry. You are in charge of making sure that you write down any voting outcomes. So like we talked before, if there's any presenters there, what time you adjourned, and when the next meetings are going to be scheduled. And then you should have a line at the end of your minutes where you write that it's been approved as written or corrected, and you sign off on them. No opinions in your minutes. Seconders of motion, any withdraw motion. So it's really important, and we're going to cover, I saw that we're going to cover motions, but motions are basically when somebody wants to change something. So say a committee chair brings up that, we're going to do the author fair in November 16th. The cost is, $350. They'll be here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. But they, and the $350 is, they're bringing like 30 books with them that we can, give away. Now, another board member could say, I make a motion to increase the books that are being sold from 30 to 60, and there's, you know, it's an extra $100, you know, whatever. So I make a motion to increase the budget $100 so that we can purchase more of the books to give to the library. Just an example. So you would have that motion form, and you would write down exactly and ask them to repeat it if you need to, exactly what the motion is, write down exactly the wording. And then the president is going to open a discussion, and everybody can talk about whether the merits of that motion, and should we, shouldn't we, why, why not. And then the president will close the discussion and call for a vote. And at that point, you would have somebody would move for the motion to be voted on, and then somebody would second that motion saying, yes, I agree, it should be voted on. And then the vote happens, and then you know, is it approved or is it lost? Now, sometimes when somebody is making a motion, a little bit later in the conversation, they realize that they didn't understand what was going on, and so they had made a motion that kind of makes no sense. That's a withdrawn motion, when they realize, hey, no, sorry, I forget that, not relevant to this, or I withdraw it because I don't think that's right now that I hear more about what's going on. That's a withdrawn motion. Okay, so general to general, executive to executive. So this is also why you have at the top what kind of a minute, type of minutes that you're taking, what kind of meeting it was. You would read at a special or an emergency meeting, that would be read back to the executive board. General to general, and then all the rest to the executive. So you can do email. Again, you can publish them in the newsletter. You can read them aloud. And your end of your minutes, that's when you have 3 people on your board. You need to actually approve the minutes from your last your last general meeting. That's usually your last meeting. And that would be your year-end minutes. Then you would have your summer term, and those would be not full minute. You'd need minutes, but not formal minutes during your summer term, interim planning. And then when you start off with your first meeting before your first executive meeting before your first general meeting, that's when you start, your year starts back up as secretary. Does that make sense, or does anybody have a question about that? Okay. So when you're doing corrections, you're actually going to use a pen. I highly recommend a red or blue pen on the official minutes in hand. You make sure that you're making any corrections right then and there. If you need people to pause for a minute so that you can do that, definitely tell them, hey, pause. The minutes that go into your binder are the ones that are approved. That means they're the ones with the corrections written on them, or the ones that were approved as is. Make sure that you are dating and initialing the corrections when you're making them. Okay, let's see. So before anytime that there's going to be a meeting, you have kind of a prep job to do. You have to prepare the minutes from the last meeting and email a draft copy to the president to make sure that they're okay with what was happening and that you had captured everything. And then also you need to start thinking about your agenda and putting together the agenda for the next meeting. It's better to work on your minutes immediately the day of or the day after of your meeting, because everything's still fresh in your mind. It's also good to keep a recorder, because sometimes it's helpful if you didn't catch something to be able to go back and listen to what they said. So your iPhone voice recorder or a little handheld one, highly recommend them. They're very helpful. Make sure that your minutes from whatever meeting are done within a week. Just get them done within a week. If it's longer than a week, you are going to forget most of what's said. So just get them done, get it out of the way. And then stick to that. let's see. The other thing for a secretary is you are the record keeper. So you need to make sure that you are keeping records of all of the meetings, all the minutes. They're legal records. They do need to be kept in your office. You can do one of two things. If they're paper copies, you can put them in your in a storage, wherever you keep your storage in your room. I know space is really tight. But you can also scan them. You can scan them. You can do minutes electronically. To do corrections in that electronically, you would have to make sure that you do the cross out feature, and then you would put the date and your initials next to it. You can type that in. But again, you want to keep these minutes, are supposed to be kept forever. So that way, no matter what happens to your board or a future board, there will always be a record of what had happened up through that, so that there's some continuity, because it's really hard when you have just 1 year and then things change. And if you don't have the same people, it's really hard to keep continuity and to kind of know what the things that had happened. There's that memory, the organizational memory kind of can go away, especially if you've had somebody there for a long time and they're a 5th grade parent in elementary school and then they leave. And now all of a sudden you have all 1st and 2nd graders and kindergarten parents, and they have no clue what's going on. So the minutes are a really good resource for new members to, if they have a question, to be able to kind of go back and zoom through those. Okay, again, in your bylaws, this is, you had that question, you will see there are lines right here that in the fillable PDF, you can actually fill it out online. Those are the spots where you are going to be able to modify it to reflect your unit. So it's very specific with bylaws. It's your meeting dates, how many members do you need for a quorum, and then what elected roles do you have in your board. So that's really kind of where that is. The bylaws, you actually can go onto Florida PTA, where there's also a huge link in our unit compliance on our website. So if you're on our website, it's right there. What you would do is you open up the bylaws link. You can fill it, the PDF, right out online. Then you print it, and then your president and your principal sign it. And then once it's signed, then you upload it back to Florida PTA. They will review it. Once it's approved, they'll stamp it and actually send you a paper copy back. That then is your approved bylaws. If it is not stamped, those are not rules then that you are working under. You have to work under whichever bylaws that the most recent bylaws that you have that actually have the Florida PTA stamp on them. So it's really important, especially as things change so much with access, technology, everything else, to make sure that your bylaws are updated. So that way you can have an election online if that happens and you needed to. You can send, keep all of your minutes electronically instead of paper. So that's one of those things that you really do want to kind of nudge your board that, hey, maybe we had our bylaws reviewed 3 years ago, so we're still in compliance, but things have changed. So let's update that. Again, parliamentary authority and Robert's Rules of Order. I know it feels like it's somebody speaking French or something. You can go and look, and there are some great videos on YouTube and how to do this. The thing to really remember is all this is some basic rules that everybody in your board is agreeing to, with how do we make sure that we give everybody a turn during the meeting to be able to speak their piece, to vote where everybody's vote is counted, and if there is an issue or a change to be made, how do we do that to make sure that it's fair and that it's actually the group decision and not just one person's decision. Again, quorum, I hope your bylaws say 10, not more, but whatever that number is, that's how many people you have to have present in your meeting in order for your meeting to happen. If you do not have a quorum, you can have a discussion, but you're not going to be able to vote or conduct any major business. Quorums are only necessary for your general meeting and your executive meeting. They are not required for committee meetings or just general, let's get together for, before an event and sit down. Those are not, you do not need quorums for committee meetings or anything like that. Quorums are necessary because of voting. So you need them in the general meeting because you're voting on your budget. You need them in your board meetings because if you're changing your bylaws or changing your standing rules, all those that or agreeing to a proposed budget change, those are all things that need votes. So that's why quorums are necessary in your board meetings and your general meetings. Let's see. Again, it looks so complicated. So I'm gonna just kind of take a step back. You guys can go in and find out information on, there's tons of information on Robert's Rules of Order, but it's not that difficult. And one of the great things is if you sit in to the board meetings or the general meetings of county council, you will see an example of Robert's rules in practice. So you can actually see people making motions and seconding motions and quorums and all that. So I highly recommend, and you realize that you are all part of the county council membership because you are members of your local PTAs under county. So you are welcome to our meetings. And we are happy to have you, and you can come and sit and listen. When you join us, we just need to know what school you're representing, because that's something that we, at the county level, we note what schools are represented. But it's a great way to find out how things are run when you sit in and you actually see a group that's using it. Especially because a lot of the Robert Rules information online is for more of a corporate setting. So highly recommend that. Again, it's like, I almost feel like it's when you're trying to teach somebody a new card game. And at first it's very confusing, and then it starts clicking. You're like, oh, okay, I got that. So corresponding secretary, I don't know if any of your groups have that, but a corresponding secretary, again, would be the one who would be corresponding with people. So sending out the notices of meetings, serving as backup to the recording secretary, reading any mail that comes into the executive board, checking out what letters need to be sent. If there is no corresponding secretary, all of these duties with social media, correspondence, all that gets really split between secretary and president. Maybe first VP too, kind of depends. Okay, any questions? That was quick. But yeah, let's get into your questions. Have you found that you have any real issues or anything that's been challenging? Pamela, I am going to, once everything has settled and I have a little moment to breathe, this is being recorded, as well as the presentation of this and the other classes that we had today will be available on our BLC webpage. So we want to make sure that all of this information is accessible to you and you can, get back to it if you have a question. But I also highly recommend that if you have a question or an issue, check out our website. Look there first. Almost all of your answers pretty much will actually be there for you. If you do not find an answer there and you can't find it on the national or state web pages, give us a call. If you go to the website and you go to the page of the general, whether it's leadership, whether it's legislation, whether it's unit compliance, you'll see at the top right side of all of the pages have a contact us, and that will actually take you to the person who is kind of overseeing that area of our organization. And so we are here to answer your questions. We are here to help you. We have all been local in local units running them on the board. So we know how things can get confusing. And
Can you just show the correct and incorrect slide again? The one where it had the different statements?
yep, hold on. Happy to.
Yeah, I just wanted to screenshot it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it. But yeah, we are here to help you and to answer, you know, those weird questions, you know, and things happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Things happen. And the big thing is if something negative happens. So if there's something to do, and this is also, you know, talked to in the treasurer and the president's classes, but if there is something funky that starts happening with finances, whether it's an issue between you and the school, or maybe the president, if there is an issue with, you know, things just not making sense, call us sooner rather than later. We can help you, especially if it's something to do with the district or the school, we can help you navigate that. If it's something with your board, we can help kind of sort that out. And of course, things always get sorted faster when you hear about them earlier. We are not here to yell at anybody or make anybody feel bad. We just want to make sure that everybody is doing what they need to do, and that you're not going to get in trouble with the IRS. That's a big thing. We want to make sure that you are able to focus on your work and not so much worried about what else is going on with, you know, funky stuff. So let us know as soon as there's an issue or you have a question. We're here to help you. Again, we're all, you know, local PTAs ourselves, and we have seen a lot of stuff. So you are not alone. Guarantee you that anything that you have an issue with is not the first time that anybody's had that issue. So do not feel embarrassed or like you are, you know, out there or something. We are here to help. Any other questions? Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I think we have a couple more minutes, so I will, let me just see here. Let me just actually share with you. I have two things left to share with you. One is a feedback form. The other is, I just wanted to show you where some things were on the website, so you feel comfortable going there and finding it. So if you go to browardptsa.org, this is where you go. There is a search here. So if you were looking for bylaws, you could put something in there and it'll pull up everything on our site for bylaws. This is where we have our main schedule, what's going on, you know, the interesting stuff that we have here, a calendar, that sort of thing. For you, a lot of information is going to be local unit resources. So this is where we have our monthly leadership series. That's a free webinar or Zoom meeting where we go over different topics. They're great. They're pretty short, but they have a lot of information on everything from Title I to community engagement to how to run membership. Sometimes we have secretary specific stuff, but it's really good stuff just for general PTA. Of course, the Broward Leadership Conference. And then in May, we'll have our new officer workshop. Down here, you have your unit compliance. So this has some compliance dates that are important for your unit to know about. We did a special compliance issue last year that has all this information in it. So if you wanted to print something out to kind of have in your binder, just so you could kind of keep an eye on that, this is where all the dues are. Here's your links for your bylaws, and then your annual audit and tax filing should be in your binder as well. Your current officer and chair information that you should also have in your binder. Your unit should have liability insurance. So you're going to want that one page. It should be posted somewhere in your office, your PTA office, as well as in your binder. And then down here are all the compliance forms. This is all for this year. So change of officers, this is right here is your requirements list, and it has dates and where to send everything in. And then if you keep scrolling, we have National PTA Compliance Basics. And then if your treasurer ever has an issue or questions, this is a great way to send them over to the financial corner. It talks about, you know, what is an interim budget? Why do you need a summer budget? What are training costs that the PTA your unit should cover? What are the rules for IRS for fundraising? And, you know, what are budget line items? That's that. Also on the very first page, the local unit resources. We have here, these are our trainings that we provide every year. We have all of your local forms here. Your kit of materials, again, that would be mailed to you from Florida once your president has updated new and returning officers. And then this one, I quite like this one. So this is how to run your meetings virtually, how to run your PTA, membership campaign, how to run a meeting for you, some meeting tips, how to hold an election. That's a really important one. Using social media and making sure that you're using the PTA brand. There are guidelines for that. And if your unit is interested in doing more advocacy work, what does that look like? So you can come over here and take a look at that. There's also the links here for from National. So this is how, you know, you as a unit are compliant with the IRS. Taking and approving meeting minutes. This is your Robert's rules here. So if you want some more information, go here. The stuff that we had pulled directly from there. And preventing theft in your PTA. What are some best practices just to keep everything connected? For your units, you have accessible representatives, area representatives, and coordinators. So these are your coordinators. They work in tandem with the reps, and they're there to help your unit. So if there's anything from some membership contests coming up through the year, if there are awards and scholarships that are available, if there is something new from state PTA that's being pushed as far as rules or compliance, they would let you know. If you have an issue, they're the person, your first line of defense. So reach out to them. They are there for you. They can come meet with your board. They can come meet with your executive team. They are happy to be on site for you. And here you can find out exactly where your stuff is. Let's see. I think that's like the big thing. You know, there's forms, there's the newsletter. If you haven't, actually, I think all of you have been subscribed since you joined the BLC event. The e-store is here for the annual dues for Broward County. You only have to pay that once a year. Regular monthly dues are paid to the state. That's based on membership. And oh, the other thing is, and then we'll go over to the feedback. If any of you would like to join one of our committees, we love having people in our committees learn, one, how do we do this stuff? Two, you're active at more of a county level. So you're not doing the in-school stuff, but you're more helping out other units with training and support, and also doing some more things on more of a community basis. So if you at any point, I know you're all first years, so you're getting your teeth wet, but in a year or two, or if you know anybody else that's really you know, advocate for PTA and is really focused on doing community work, send them our way, because we'd love to have them there. Okay, I'm going to share with you the feedback form. And then if you could just click on the link and submit it, I would appreciate it. There you go. So again, I apologize for the beginning delay. Technology, first time hybrid. But you know, we're PTA flexible. We figure it out. And I hope that even though I was not Cornelia, I hope that I was a decent substitute.
Jeez.
So everybody okay with it? And then you can leave. I'm just going to stay open for just another minute. So if anybody wanted the survey link, they can get to it. Otherwise, thank you so much for spending some time this afternoon with me. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions or you need any assistance, you know, we're here. Just give us a ring. We're here for you. Have a good afternoon. Bye.